So I am up in a big burrow. We're gonna piece this down. Yeah, I wanted to do a little 60-day, get my akimbo on here. Not 60-day, what am I talking about? I'm in my 8th month of basically a carnivore diet. Ketovore, maybe you could call it. I'm, you know, under 20 grams of carbohydrates per day. A lot of times I'm under 10. I usually have something because I have coffee and I have cocoa, like 90% cocoa, so hardly any carbs in that. And I occasionally have some leafy or green vegetables, you know, asparagus or broccoli. And most recently for 3 days, you know, I had an LDL measurement in the 400s. And so if we increase carbohydrates for 3 days and then test, that can have a dramatic effect sometimes on the LDL levels. So I did that recently. I just tested the other day. And I might get my results today. In which case, maybe I'll find out today and I can put it in this video somewhere. But yeah, so I had most recently a 407, and my peak was 429. So that was, you know, fairly high. 1/10 of 1 percentile, kind of high. So my doctor was kind of freaking out. So I've got a cardiologist appointment set for, what is it, April 5th. And they're gonna have a dietitian there, which is probably, you know, protocol. And they know that, you know, my situation is probably diet induced, so they want to try to get somebody to convince me. I'm not a very convincible person when I'm set on doing something. So, but I did have, you know, lean mass hyperresponder numbers. I had 407 for my LDL. My HDL was 131, which any of you who know, that's pretty high. And then triglycerides of 58, I think, or 59, which is pretty low. And so we had to, I think I can get this dropped. Maybe I'll go up there and make a couple more. Could do a great big drop, but I can drop these individually, it'll be better. So that's lean mass hyperresponder numbers. And I ended up, the last 3 days, I had a sweet potato a day and some asparagus, but approximately, you know, 50 to 100 grams of carbohydrates, which should, like, alter these numbers. It can greatly increase the LDL because, or greatly reduce the LDL, because your liver will create receptors for the LDL in light of the new carbohydrate introduction. So then, you know, if this is successful, if my body responds that way, and let's say I have an LDL in the hundreds rather than the 400s, you know, that would look impressive. And a lot of these dietitians and even cardiologists, they don't even know. Like, they don't even know that you can manipulate the LDL in this way. And so I'm really hoping that I have that kind of adjustment, because that'd be great. And what I'm going to do between now and April 5th is I'm going to test once a month, and I'll have to see how elaborate I want to get here. I mean, I have the ability. I'm not on a super fixed income or anything. I would have the ability to, you know, take a test in approximately a month and just go pretty much straight carnivore from now until that time. And then take my test and probably, you know, have an LDL in the 400s. And then we could do 3 days, you know, take a test on a Friday, and then Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night, eat a you know, a sweet potato a day for those 3 nights, and then fast 12 hours, and on Monday take another blood test and see if we can have, you know, an LDL of, you know, 407 on Friday and an LDL of, you know, 159 on Monday. That would be great data to bring to my cardiologist, who may not think that you can manipulate LDL at all like that without a statin. And so, you know, she's probably going to be faced with a client unlike she's had before, where she says, oh, we're going to require labs, you know, within a week of your visit. Okay, well, what if I have labs every month leading up to your visit? And then a week from the visit, I take a lab, and then 3 days later, I take another lab. Now, the real dilemma I have is, am I gonna give her the really high one and not tell her about the other ones and get her true response and then do the big reveal? I don't know. We'll have to see. Now, the question I have here is, do I take this whole thing? I've got this hickory down here, and I can probably put that hickory right in between that crotch and get that to fall down right there. But it might be tagging that other oak there, in which case I'd get close to that hickory. So I don't really want to hit that hickory. So I think I'm gonna work my way up there and take those individually, or at least take that one side off. Brush the snow off here. Where am I at? Oh, I got myself hooked up over here. Got more than one lanyard on. Get that lanyard off. Bring that over here. Okay, we're gonna get out here. Now, is this very sturdy? Am I gonna be able to put a lanyard on there? Probably not really rest on it, but it might give me a little. Might have to hang low. I got a very lateral line behind me. get myself tightened up there, tightened up there. All right. Myself. Okay, I can reach out here with my saw and get this. I want to make sure my other camera's on. All right, I haven't started this saw yet today. It looks cold and snowy out here, but it's not that cold. We got the sunshine. Tune very well because I'm not letting it warm up. I'm glad I took that off because it hung up in that tree like I thought it would. And if it would have been attached to this, we would have raked that hickory. But being by itself, it was able to kind of just tumble out and flip out of there. Well, I might as well tip this off because I might snag the end of that oak out there too. So I'm just, while I'm here, I'm going to take this. Okay. So I'm considering kind of, I mean, not disrespectfully playing with my cardiologist, but you know, they believe that I'm in serious danger with a high LDL. And forever, I've never really believed that there was a bad cholesterol. And you realize that we're not even really talking about cholesterol. Cholesterol is technically in every cell of the body. When we remake our cells, you know, every week, when we're remaking our cells, we have autophagy, cell death, and then we have, you know, cell life, or, you know, renewed cells, new generation. And cholesterol is in all of our cell membranes, so we need it. And it's the lipid protein that they're tracking. It's not the cholesterol. The cholesterol's inside the lipid protein. So it's not even the cholesterol that's bad. So it's just bad nomenclature to even be saying we've got good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. We just have cholesterol. And the lipid proteins are what they're afraid of. And now they're starting to watch ApoB lipid protein, and say that's the real marker. And that, of course, is high in me as well. and the snow clears. There we are. All right, no harm, no foul on that one. All right, I think we can take this one off right here too. Should have just kept cutting. Well, we tipped that thing over and kept it away from this walnut, so that was good. All right, I'm back out of the tree now, and my test results came in. So that's good news. Suspense is over. So I've got my appointment on April 5th, and I'm supposed to take my labs a week ahead of that and have them available for the doctor. I'll probably email them in as soon as I get the results. So I drew blood on the 5th, on January the 5th, and my LDL was 407. Now I had within 3 days of the test, I had a sweet potato. One sweet potato, like one serving of a sweet potato. It wasn't even the whole sweet potato. And my LDL was 429 on the previous test. And so it was down to 407. I know somebody here is listening to this and they're freaking out going, this guy's going to die. But it's down 22 points to 407. My total cholesterol was 540. Triglycerides are 59, super low. HDL was 131. That's pretty significantly high. HDL, it's the good cholesterol. And then VLDL was a rock bottom 2. And anything below, 15 is supposed to be good. The range is 5 to 40 and mine is 2. So VLDL, that just means like the VLDL starts out big out of the liver and is carrying triglycerides to my body. And they become LDL as they deliver those triglycerides. So throughout this fast, this 12-hour fast, all of my VLDL are becoming LDL. And so my VLDL was very low at 2. My triglycerides also low at 59. And my LDL is sky high at 407 because they've delivered their goods. And so there's all this LDL out there. They're doing what LDL is designed to do. Carry, fatty acids to the body. I mean, it's doing what it does. And so this is a metabolic response to being fat adapted. It makes sense to me intuitively. This is just what people are telling me. Guys like Nick Norwitz and Dave Feldman and their cohort, they're doing the lean mass hyperresponder study. And so now on January 10th, I drew my blood again. And this time, 3 days prior to the test, I ate a sweet potato every day, every evening, like the whole sweet potato. Tried to get about 100 grams of sweet potato consumed. And so my LDL came down to 388 only. I was hoping to get like a big jump. Apparently I'm going to have to up that ante a little bit to try to get that jump. But I could also do this with saturated fat, which I would kind of like to get the result with saturated fat, because wouldn't it be cool to show a test to my cardiologist and say, here, my LDL was 407. 3 days later, after consuming high volumes of saturated fat,
my LDL is, 189 or something, something dramatically lower. 388 is not dramatically lower from 407. It was kind of a disappointing experiment for me. But I have 3 more opportunities to do this. So I'm gonna kind of go pretty much straight carnivore till the end of the month of January. And then I'm gonna take a blood draw and get my results. Right the night of the blood draw, I'm going to increase my saturated fats. So that day after the blood draw, I'm going to start increasing my saturated fats all through the weekend. That'll probably be a Friday that I take my test, take my draw. So all through the weekend, I'm going to eat elevated saturated fats. And then on Monday or Tuesday, retake the test and see if I can get a bigger jump than 20 points off my LDL score. And the whole point is that these can be manipulated. Even getting 20 points lower in a matter of 3 days. This was just 3 days, 5 days it was. Yeah, the 5th to the 10th. So 5 days later and I dropped off 20 points. So this is just a snapshot in time, on what's happening in our bodies. So let's look at the other numbers. My triglycerides were up to 73, which is still, at the bottom of the range. The triglycerides are supposed to be 0 to 149, so I'm right in the middle at 73. The HDL, I'm still at 115, so down from 131, but still 115. There's not a lot of people with it over 100, so 115 is still super high. My VLDL was 7, so a little higher than 2, but still well under, half of 15. So that was good. And so I saw a little improvement with increasing my carbs right before the test, just 3 days. Now if I went 7 days of carb increase, maybe that does something, but maybe that, raises my triglycerides quite a ways. I don't know. But at any rate, I'm still pretty close to the lean mass hyperresponder situation with triglycerides at 73. The technical definition is triglycerides under 70 and HDL over 80 and LDL over 200. So I'm well over 200. I'm well over 80 on HDL, and I'm very close to 70 with 73 on the triglycerides. But here's my real puzzle. Last time on the 5th, my glucose was 95. So 100 is your borderline, right? That they don't want you to go to. I was at 95, but the time before that, which wasn't that far, I've taken several blood tests here, I was at 104, and my A1C was 5.8. Well, that's borderline, pre-diabetic. Well, I'm not eating carbs. I am a very disciplined, mostly carnivore. Under 10 grams usually. Never did I go over 20 grams. The only time I went over 20 grams was doing the experiment with the sweet potato, where I tried to ramp up to 100 grams a day for 3 days. And so I'm very disciplined. How over a 3-month period of time did my A1C come through at 5.7 when it was 5.2? Okay, what gives? 5.2. And my insulin on this one is 4.1. On the last one, it was 3.8. So my insulin is very low because, they say the range for insulin is 2.6 to 24.9. Well, 24.9, like something major is going wrong in your body if you're making that much insulin. And so that's a huge range of insulin, but that's based on a population eating carbohydrates. And so there's a lot of people with insulin resistance, and they're scoring, you know, an insulin of 20, and their blood glucose is 95. But, you know, they're still insulin resistant, but they don't see it because nobody checks insulin. You don't even check it. My doctor wouldn't even check it. The only reason I have this test is because I took the test. So my insulin's 4.1 and my blood sugar is 100. How is my blood sugar 100 with an insulin of 4.1? Now, it was 95 with an insulin of 3.8. I think I had 3.8 the previous time, and I scored 95 on the blood sugar. So my insulin was a little higher, and my glucose was a little higher. So comparatively, from one test to the other, I appear to be a little insulin resistant in that regard. But 4.1 is still a pretty low insulin. I mean, I've heard carnivores that are down around 2. But you know, 4.1, I'm happy. If you're under 6, you're like, you're pretty insulin sensitive. So it's a little bit of a puzzle. You know, what is causing my A1C to rise? Now, if I'm looking at confounding factors in my life, the only variance I had in my diet was 1 week prior to my test on the 22nd of December. I drew blood on the 22nd of December. And that's when I scored a 429 on my LDL. And I had a 5.8 A1C. And for the last 8 days before that, I'd gotten a gift of cashew nuts. You know, Dr. Westman will tell you, don't take the cashews, don't eat the nuts. And sure enough, they were a little trigger to me, and I had about 3 ounces of those nuts every day. It was like a 2-pound jar. And they weren't gone by the 22nd, but they're, you know, 2/3 of the jar was gone. I figured, you know, I did the math. It was about 3 ounces per day, which, you know, is a number of carbs. I probably went over 20 grams of carbs because of those nuts. And your A1C is weighted to the last 30 days of the 90-day period that it's kind of tracking. The last 30 days play a greater role than the first 30 days. So the last 8 days were those nuts. You know, so did they have an impact? But now, you know, I mean, we're getting past that. And, you know, maybe I'm creeping back down. I'm down to 5.7 from 5.8. We'll see, though. It's going to take, you know, a couple months to get the A1C and see if anything's happening. But a very consistent thing in my life that's been disruptive and maybe causing stress, which stress can increase your blood glucose. And so my sleep has been disrupted. And part of that is, for my duration of my life, I've suffered with leg cramps. My mother has, my sister does. We have a familial, I don't even know the name of it. My sister does. My sister takes a prescription for it. Like a familial cramps. It just is what it is. And so, but mine is mostly event driven. You know, I'm an arborist, of course. And so I go out and climb all day. I'm going to cramp at night. I just know it. I come home, I try to do stuff, I drink, I put salt in my body, I try to do stuff. I still cramp at night. And so with carnivore and keto, my triglyceride balance, or not my triglycerides, my my elements, my electrolytes, thank you, have been difficult to keep balanced. And so I take element, you know, I mix up an element a day, and I try to drink in that 32 ounces of water all day long. I add a little iodine. I eat salt like it's going out of style. So I try to replenish my body with salt. And, you know, still having trouble with cramps. And I take potassium and magnesium pills. But then I got a little hint from Dr. Westman, oh, milk of magnesia. It's liquid form. You know, it's a laxative. Of course, I knew magnesium was a laxative. I tried not to take too much. But a couple teaspoons of milk of magnesia at night, I've slept solid for the last 3 nights. And so maybe that's kind of the ticket, taking liquid magnesium that gets in there and gets absorbed. And maybe if I can master my sleep and get my circadian rhythm going, maybe that is causing my glucose, like my morning glucose, the dawn effect. Maybe that's really high for me. I don't run a glucose monitor on myself. I've got a daughter who's a type 1 diabetic. And I said, yeah, I'm thinking about doing a glucose monitor. You mean this? She's all indignant about it. Like, you want to do this? I'm a slave to this, and you want to do it? You know, anyway, it's kind of funny. But I don't. And so maybe my dawn effect blood sugar is pretty high. Maybe it's well over 100. I don't know. You know, my fasting glucose is 100. You know, my dawn effect could be 120 or 150. I don't know, 175. Who knows? Maybe it's driving my A1C up. And so important to maybe get this under control, and maybe it's my sleep. You know, it's just a stress-induced high blood sugar. So between now and April 5th, I want to get that glucose, because this was a distraction to my doctor. They're like, yeah, now your A1C is at 5.7. You're borderline diabetic. The beef is making you diabetic. You know, that stupid thing out there. It's like, the beef isn't making me diabetic. You know, you know, there's some reason why my A1C is high, and it's not because I'm ingesting sugar, because I'm not. But my body, my gluconeogenesis is elevated for some reason. And so maybe it's that sleep stress. So we'll be investigating that. But at the end of January, I'm taking blood. I'm doing a 3-day high-fat test, and then I'm going to take blood again. So I'm going to have 2 comparative tests, 3 days apart. Hopefully I get a big jump. Then I'm going to try that again at the end of February. Take a test. 3 days later, take a second test. And then again at the end of March, which is right before my appointment, right? So that'll be with, you know, 1 test outside of 7 days before the appointment. And then 3 days later, I'm going to take a second test. And I'll submit the first one. And I'll hold the second one and see, it's like, which one do I want to give the doctor? Do I want to give her the lit up one with the 420 LDL? Or do I want to give her the manipulated one? Ultimately, I'm going to talk them both over with them because, you know, I obviously don't need medication to manipulate my LDL. I can manipulate it at will. You know, if I wanted to add, you know, carbohydrates on a regular basis, which so far I've tried to. I've done some vegetables and stuff. And, you know, next year I think I'm going to ferment a bunch of green beans. Fermented green beans are actually pretty good. You add a little calcium chloride, I think, keeps them crunchy. And you ferment them in just pure salt. it's like super easy. It's not like canning. I mean, it's kind of like canning. You get a mason jar, you fill it up with beans, you put a tablespoon of Redmond's real salt in there, or Himalayan salt for flavor, a little bit of crushed garlic maybe, and you know, maybe a little cayenne pepper even, and put the cap on. 3 weeks later, it's like fermented. And it takes out all the phytotoxins, and the nutrients actually stay. You know, it's fermenting it. It's what a gorilla does in his belly, because gorillas have a fermentation gut. They have a, you know, they don't have a monogastric system like we do. They got a multiple gastric system, and one of those systems ferments. It's kind of like the ruminant animals have. I mean, they ferment these things in their bodies and pull out the nutrients they need. Well, you can ferment these vegetables ahead of time and make them much more palatable to your body. So I'm going to do that with some green beans and some other things next year. Maybe, or at some time in the future here. You can't get green beans anywhere. I've eaten some asparagus here and there and different things. Broccoli, yeah, I can always eat some broccoli, cook it up. But, you know, I can find a happy medium. But my whole argument is my LDL actually an issue if it's a response to what my body is asking for? Like, my body's asking for fat. The only way for the fat to get to my cells is for LDL to carry it there. So I'm just creating a bunch of boats to carry the energy to my body. It's the lipid energy model that Dave Feldman came up with. And, you know, it's yet to be proven, but so is the, you know, lipid theory that LDL causes heart disease. It just happens to be present in atherosclerosis. It's present in plaque. Well, so is red blood cells. So are red blood cells causal to heart disease? Well, they're present. You know, fibrin is the binder that binds together blood clots. That's all mixed up in plaque. So is fibrin causal to heart disease? It's there, it's present. In fact, everything that's part of a blood clot is present in plaque. So is plaque actually just a blood clot? And every once in a while, a blood clot breaks loose and causes, you know, a heart attack with an embolism. So, I don't know. There's a lot of hypotheses out there. And, you know, is my LDL high because I'm fat adapted and I'm lean? Like, I don't have any fat around my body for my cells to just grab close by. It's, you know, it's got to be carried there. And there needs to be a vehicle to carry it there, and LDL is that vehicle. And so I'm not convinced that I'm in trouble. So hopefully my cardiologist will write a prescription for a CT angiogram, and I can get a picture of my blood vessels and my arteries. And we'll see if I have atherosclerosis in play. I've got something because I scored a score of 13 on my CAC score, my calcium score. 13 is super low. You know, you usually hear about people, oh, you got a CAC score. It was 300. Okay, well, mine wasn't 300. It was 16. So apparently that's in the 50th percentile still. Like 50% of people have 15, 50% of people have higher than 15. And so, you know, there's something there. Now, is that all spread out, or is there a big patches of plaque somewhere. And where's the soft plaque? Because the calcium is just the hard plaque. So a CT angiogram will show this, and hopefully we can get that. But the rest of my labs look really good. My lipid numbers, I got the number test on this one. And, you know, my LDL size was 22.1. So it's supposed to be greater than 20.5. So I was 22.1. So I was almost 2 points over. So my numbers all look good, but my LDL numbers were like way off the charts. Which, you know, your LDL-P is supposed to be less than 1,000. Mine was over 3,000. The LDL-C calculated is supposed to be 99 or less, and mine was 397. And then total cholesterol was, you know, 527. It's supposed to be less than 200. But at any rate, all of my size particles, large VLDL, small LDL, large HDL, VLDL size, everything's in range. And like low range. Like I have very low risk according to my size, my particle size. So that's good news. But most people are very concerned about the high LDL. So there's a long discussion of my labs. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm kind of excited. It's game on. You know, I'm having fun. We're, you know, gonna run 3 months of tests here. So it's not that, it's about $100 a test. You know, well, that's pretty easy. Just get $100 a test. You know, if I wanted to just do the lipid panel and the comprehensive blood work, you know, I could get by for $68. I could get by under 100. You know, so I can afford these tests, and nobody is looking at their tests that many times. You know, they're like, well, 3 months later, we'll take some more labs, and they got to go into their doctor to get their labs. Well, I go to ownyourlabs.com, and that's Dave Feldman's Citizen Science Foundation. So a little bit of my purchasing power there goes to the Citizen Science Foundation and helps support the next bit of research. And so, you know, I'm supporting a good cause. I'm getting numbers on myself. I'm learning about my body and how it goes up and how it goes down. And, you know, is my A1C changing month to month? It's gonna be a good time. So this is the Ageless Arborist, and, you know, I'm figuring it out. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. And, you know, check me out on GameOfTrees.com or GameOfTrees. Well, GameOfTrees.com, you can buy some stuff. But Game of Trees on YouTube. And we've got a lot of good stuff there too. Take care.